to invite everybody to the next installment of the Sit and Learn webinar series. Hi, my name is Lucas Schaefer up in the corner. Hey, hi. Today I'm going to be talking about a subject that's very near and dear to our company, Stand and Stretch, a digital marketing agency. And we have become completely and utterly aware of a lot of things that are going on in our market and how we work with clients and how they respond to us. And we started noticing a couple of things. So this is a series of three. This is the first introductory to the way we do business and how we want you to expect greater things from the people you work with in the digital agencies or digital providers. And so we'll talk about the differences. But first, I wanted to put a focus on click summaries. If you know anything about digital marketing, one of the biggest crutches that get put into the whole mix of what you purchase and what you get, you normally get left with a stack of papers. I love the the imagery we're using here because there's a stack of papers, and what you would see, and especially on my desk, I end up with sort of a stack of summaries of things that just don't make any sense to me. Normally, click summaries are the fruit of the labor. They are the deliverable, the item that gets brought back to you at the end of the day. And sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes it's blustery. Sometimes you can't tell what's going on. So we know at Stand and Stretch that click summaries are not the thing you're supposed to get every month. They're not the end all be all of what your progress is in the digital marketing spaces. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today and hope that you guys could join us. So my name is Lucas Schaefer, and I tell people a lot that I basically sold my first website to a band for trade for guitar lessons when I was 17. That's approximately 21 years ago. So I've been in some kind of web design format. I didn't do a lot of freelancing in those first few years. However, I became known for web design, and that's one of the biggest things that I always was able to bring to the table at every company I worked for up to that point. But I'm the owner and creative director of Stand and Stretch, and I've had the pleasure of being a TEDx speaker in Augusta. I've got a lot of experience with working with almost 36 industries, everything from plumbing to pest control, from personal waxing to hair salons. And so my focus is on small businesses, and especially ones that are high energy, have great branding in place, who are coming to me and saying, "Hey, Lucas, I have a company and I'm not able to express it well on the web." Well, that's what Stand and Stretch does. We bring that layer of customer affinity and connection to their customers. So moving forward, the idea now, moving forward, is that there's a couple of concepts that you have to understand. Today is your first time behind the scenes. So one of the foundations of becoming an agency, which is separate from a provider, is that you do have an internal creative team. You have an internal management structure. You have a priority set, hopefully bandwidth that allows for things to get done today, next week, and next month. At the end of the day, you might not be able to get behind this curtain with your current digital provider. So I'm bringing a couple of things to the forefront. A lot of agencies right now are talking about transparency. The transparency is great, but I think at the end of the day, what you really want is accountability. So Stand and Stretch has already welcomed transparency several years ago into our model. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in this webinar. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing the work, or if you can't show that you did some work, then what's going on? I once used an analogy early on in Stand and Stretch, because we're 10 years old now, about how building a website is not like building a house. And if you've ever built a house or seen a house be built, it happens over time. It's not something that happens in a few days. So what normally happens is that the person who's having the building built, the owner of the building, can visit the location and see that they put in the windows today and that they painted the shutters and finally the roof went on, and maybe they can walk through it and they're taking pictures, they're putting it on social media. There is a excitement that builds through that process. Stand and Stretch doesn't have that luxury. You can't walk up to your website and go, man, this is really taking shape. This is really taking form. The creative process is a little bit different than, I think, the construction design, which is well laid out ahead of time. Creative process for us is all about feedback and revision. So when you get to a point where you're looking at us behind the scenes, we're going to show you right now a lot of what reports mean to us, a lot of what you should be asking your current digital provider, and honestly, just putting together a good knowledge point for you to understand what the difference between digital provider and a digital agency is. So here we go. So we have to acknowledge immediately that reports are just a part of it. We can't really relay good information without report, but there's nothing that I can tell you that a report has changed the mind of a business owner. I never showed up with a gazillion clicks and the business owner said, hey, thank you. I can't wait for my bazillion clicks next month. All the while, they're also telling me in the same meeting, business is down. We're not seeing the type of foot traffic. We understand that there's a lot of clicks and a lot of site traffic and a lot of people are seeing our ads and impressions, but I don't know where those ads are. Matter of fact, I don't even know what they look like or who created them. This becomes a problem because at Stand and Stretch, we want you to work with the artist to get the creative right, to get the brand correct. And most of the times when we work with clients who have come to us from a digital provider, they only have access to, let's just say, an account manager. And in that point of reference, the account manager has to relay the information from the owner to a creative person, hopefully somebody that's in the same building as the account manager. And just like any telephone game, things get lost in translation. Me personally, I'm a notorious note taker, so I understand I don't want anything to get lost. I'm even taking my own sub notes from the primary notes to make sure I capture the whole moment and taking quotes and everything. It's just, I'm a nut about taking notes. So these reports, they really translate to another aspect of what you're spending your money on. So when you think about management fees, when you think about spend rates, paying a digital provider $1,000 a month and expecting them to take their management cost out of it and also take what's left and buy your advertising placements, sometimes can be a little hairy. These reports most of the time don't mention how much money was spent. And it's strange. If you have a report, you should go look at it. You saw clicks, you saw impressions, you may have seen cost per click or cost per impression. So you see some variations of how they're telling you your money's spent. But at the end of the day, are you seeing a month-to-month comparison of the exact amount of money you spent? We'll talk a little bit more about that. So we've come to the conclusion that if all we show you each month is a click summary, we're not doing our job. Click summaries have led to more clients leaving than anything. If that's all we show you, we email it, we show you in person, we bring up a thing, and this is what you get. Then after the third or fourth time, sometimes that information doesn't change very, very much. So be careful. Reports are still important, but not to the degree of which you might be getting sold there on that part. So what is wrong with the reports? I mean, let's face it, they all go into the trash at some point. So why are they so temporary? Why are they so elongated into success, as most digital providers might explain? To us, reports can be a waste of time. Uh, they can bring an idea that something has happened, but what is the connection to the customer? Where is the opportunity for us to look at um, whether or not you have more foot traffic, your sales are up, the things are incredibly smart for us to be, the software that we use, especially with e-commerce clients and WordPress, we can do a great job in connecting brick and mortar stores to, offline sales, social media campaigns to offline foot traffic. And so when you look at connecting reports to internal sales, like a sales sheet or your point of sale, we can bring something together that is a lot better than just a click summary. We can start to affect the bottom line, the return on investment. So click reports and just click reports, they just a waste of time. If you come in explaining to me that I got 1,000 clicks and 10,000 impressions and don't have any connection to where a customer is new to us, and out of those clicks I've got 17 new customers, then you're wasting my time. So the other part about a digital provider and not a digital agency is that sometimes click reports are used as a smokescreen. We like to think that it's become synonymous for spend rates. So when we use click summaries, we use them to balance how much money you spent, so that we can say things like, if we're not showing you a result in X, Y, and Z, these categories, these clicks, these impressions, then we need to modify the ad placement, the quality of the ad, the amount of time it takes to the amount of spend that it takes to reach to a point where we can get a conversion rate that makes sense. But if I'm a customer and I'm paying a digital provider $1,000 a month on a digital marketing service, and I'm given this report every month, and it's my thing. It lets I get to sit down and somebody tells me I get 1,000 clicks and 10,000 impressions. Uh, there's a much broader conversation that needs to be had. These are very specific reports that only tell a part of the story. So, like I just mentioned, even if you have a dashboard and you can sort of tweak the data by using the little drawstrings and pulling the pulleys and try to make the dates match up and look really well, um, you just don't know if it's complete. Most of the reports are created and handed over to you um, because there's a lot more data, and the provider has chosen this as the most successful outcome, the most optimistic outcome. Now, where's the bad stuff? Show me where you saw a problem in the last month and you improved it, and and it makes sense for my business. Show me that. That's why click reports are always in an optimistic standpoint. We look at the summary of the click report to be a drastic stance on, we shoved a lot of people into your door front, but they didn't really want to be there. They didn't buy anything. So that's why we are petitioning digital providers to up their game and bring to the forefront their abilities to connect these external softwares, these e-commerce platforms, the point of sale softwares, so there can be a reliance on the money they're spending for digital ads. So the last one here, lack of support. In the end, the click summary isn't based on a strategy. That's easy to say. Um, your digital provider handing you the report is often the person who is often not the person who's making the account changes. This may not be true in smaller digital providers, digital marketing agencies. Sometimes you're dealing with the person who's working with the strategy. Like, for example, at Stand and Stretch, uh, I would be at the table for strategy and internally be working with the team on strategy, making sure that clients' needs are brought to the forefront, branding specifics, outcomes, everything we need to process. Sometimes when you're looking at a click summary, it doesn't explain a strategy. It doesn't give you an opportunity to understand just how much detail and opportunity goes into digital marketing. So, for example, at Stand and Stretch, a digital agency, we are trying to connect and optimize and continually branch into understanding the customer that we're trying to get to buy from our client. Like I mentioned, we've been in business for 10 years. We've had I think it's over 320 small business customers in that time period, and that spreads across about 36 industries. We've had clients that sold internationally. We've had clients in Los Angeles and Chicago and Tampa, and I've dealt with markets that are primarily women, that are primarily African American, that are rich, that are poor, and I can tell you that, you know, and I think I mentioned this coming up, and I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but you shouldn't be spending the same amount of money each month. And you shouldn't be dedicated to someone telling you that a minimum amount of spend is $500 or 1,000 or 2,000. They should prove it. If you come to Stand and Stretch, let us look at your audience, your market. We're going to tell you what you're going to need to spend, and it's not going to be a standard $1,000 a month or $500 a month. You'll see that to be creative and to also be useful in the speed and the spend of our clients, we use data-driven information. So, so this is where I've kind of cracked into this a little bit. The three major concerns reports create. I'm big on this little dialogue here because I know how it feels to be a business owner who gets a report at the end of the month. We've bought services before, and we've done that, you know. And I can remember one instance of working with a local media newspaper that we were buying ads for on their .com, and you know, and I looked at it as, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to sort of buy into the community assets, the you know, some of the major ones that are visited by the Columbus, Georgia audience. And so it was interesting that once I convinced one of our clients to buy into their platform, that we were basically buying impressions. The impressions were everything from 30,000 to 60,000 to 100,000, and that's how you bought them. They weren't based on success; they were based on quantity, right? It was such an interesting thing. So we run the ads, and probably the third day in, I get a call from my client saying, "I keep refreshing the page. I can't find the ad anywhere, and now I've got my whole team, 4 or 5 people, on the page, refreshing, going everywhere, and we haven't seen the ad once. What's going on?" So I call the media company and say, "Hey, you know, my client's kind of upset that, you know, they bought you know, for what you guys told me, you know, the impressions were going to be advantageous. You know, they basically oversold it." And so I'm coming back to my client and saying, "Hey, I've got this click report, and it literally just had impressions on it, you know." And I think a later one ended up having clicks, and it was you know, they were sending me bits and pieces of the information. Well, I did what I do. I brought in the manager at that time, sat down across from him and said, "You guys are kidding me, right? We're paying premium price just to have the ad shown, while in between of all those impressions." So the question then became, what were the ads that my client was seeing? They were national ads. They weren't local ads. They were you know, national businesses, because that media company hadn't filled in all their impression, all their capacity. They were allowing these other national companies to sit on top of those impressions for pennies on the 1,000 impressions. And I knew this, and I brought that to their attention, and they said, "Well, we're not going to sell clicks." Because if they sold clicks, then it made sense, because my ad would continually show until I got 1,000 clicks. And 1,000 clicks makes sense to me, because if I have a 3% conversion rate, I can turn 30 customers, right? So they sold me impressions, not clicks. And then I didn't have preference in that area. So this is a place where concerns get created from what you buy and whether or not you're working with an agency or a digital provider. The provider just makes the sale, just grabs the dollar, just grabs the contract, tallies it up, goes out and pitches again and gets the next one, 12-month contracts, 24-month contracts. So here, that story leads me directly into this. Reports often lack depth and actual returns. Very rarely do I get a summary or export from one of our native systems like Google Ads and give it to a client where I don't have to find the connection to the business. We have our customers work with us on providing us some kind of detail, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or export from a point of sale or a manually created sales sheet, where we're connecting the amount of dollars and the amount of information that they can connect with us and coming up with real actual numbers. We call those ROI statements. We do them quarterly, depending on what kind of information, how much we have. If you're a whale hunter, which means your sales are 5,000 and above each time you make a sale, sometimes the cost per advertising is a lot. But if you're a tuna fisherman, which means your services could be anywhere from $5 a transaction to $300 or $400 a transaction, those can happen quite frequently. We see e-commerce being great at the tuna hunting, where we get better impressions, better return on spending less amount of dollars because the item that's being purchased doesn't require much thought. It's a $5 widget. Buy it. Okay, great. 1,000 people. I've got 30 customers. So, and the worst part about the report is it sometimes gives the provider a heightened sense of success. They start to see that, hey, your clicks went up 10% since last month, and then you're like, I can't feel that in my business. What does that mean? 10% more people came to my website. 10% more people saw me. They try to explain in that sense. At the end of the day, you're not seeing a 10% bump in your numbers, and that's a big cause for concern. These reports can often mislead and misguide you from what your digital marketing success should really be related to. Stand and Stretch, as an agency, we are building that pathway to success. It's not just based on click reports. So number 2, we've got reports keep you out of the advertising platform. Yeah, this is a big one. Ask your digital provider right now. Say, hey, can I look over your shoulder at the ad platform? Most of these are considered. This is a taboo statement. No way does your digital provider, who's got you under a 12-month contract for $1,000 a month, want you peeking into your account, and that they want to give you a report so they can manage it, which is number 3. So when you're dealing with this and you're asking for a virtual tour, you have the right. You're spending money. You need to look at this transparency that most of the agencies are now offering, as a wide scope of thing, because there's been so much market turmoil over the past 2 or 3 years, where people are basically treating the things that Stand and Stretch does well as snake oil. They're selling snake oil. They're not doing the work. They're not participating in the client success. They're shoving reports down people's throats, and they're unrealistically tying themselves to contracts that they know small businesses can't fulfill. It's very rare a small business can come up with $1,000 a month consistently. And guess what? If your digital provider doesn't get their payment, they basically will take you to court. They won't work with you. They won't say, let's extend that out. Stand and Stretch doesn't have contracts. We believe in the ebb and flow of business, and we've seen it over many industry, over many small businesses. Even the larger ones take a hit, and when they do, they don't have to worry about coming to us and say, "Hey, Lucas, we can't pay our contracted rates." You know what? And then that's okay with us. We understand. Just take your time, pause your campaigns, pause your management costs that we charge as a flat rate fee, and work with us. Let's talk about it. So number 3, I already kind of moved on to it, but Most reports are provided to a client after someone has picked it apart to show optimistic outcomes. Get the raw data. Ask for the raw data. This is an important thing. Not only be able to peek over someone's shoulder into your Google Ads account, because technically, if you look at the sort of the Google partner rules and regulations, there should be a point in time where the client can have access to their account, or even have the ability to take that account with them when they leave. It's part of the good practices, best practices that Google puts out. So get the raw data, get it in a big spreadsheet, and make sure you see everything, all the fields, everything, because a report might only show 12 columns of data, while the raw data might have over 60 or 70. If you ever want to get a look at a Google Ads account, you're more than welcome to connect with us, and I'll show you what you should have access to. And you should never, ever, ever be spending the same amount of money each month on the same thing and the same spend rate. Your business changes with the seasons, and so should your campaigns. One of the ways that Stand and Stretch helps with this opportunity here is that we charge flat rate fees for management, and your spend rate is variable. Matter of fact, you pay directly to the vendor, whether it's Google Ads or a retargeting platform or any other advertising platform that we utilize. You actually pay them directly. So you're paying us a management fee to go through, optimize, build it out, report about it, connect the dots with return on investment. At the end of the day, if you're spending $1,000 every month, I can tell you that after a quarter, you should either be spending less or more, or have changed the entire scope of the campaigning. So it's very rough for me to see someone get tied to a 12-month, $1,000 a month contract, and see that play out over time, and to a point where I get very unhappy about their attitudes. After 6 or 7 months, that customer that's under contract is coming to us telling me things like, we've got a 60% buyout on our contract. All I get is these reports. I don't think they're doing anything. I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on. And that is a big deal. If that's happening and you feel like that's happening to you, then you should find a way to escape. Sometimes contracts are legal things. You should deal with those. All right, it's great things to talk about here. So how can you protect yourself? Next time you're getting that phone call from a Google representative who says your website's broke and you need to spend lots of dollars on it, what do you need to tell them? May I see more? If you say you're going to fix it, will you send me the stuff? If you're currently with a provider, you see the click report. May I see more? What data am I missing on here? I see all this stuff on this report. How does all this tie together to what I've told you I wanted my business to do, which is create more customers, grow my brand, expose my new products and services to an existing audience, whatever idea the campaign's based on, how are we tying all this report information together? The other question is, what was done last week? Or last month or yesterday? Most providers don't let you see behind their magic curtain. Our agency does, and we bring accountability into transparency, because you get to see our time logs, and they're by real people who are in the United States, who you may know. And so this is one of the greatest things that I think a digital agency provides above a digital provider, is the actuation of work within the entire campaign. For example, if you're doing a month-to-month sort of SEO management with us, then you'll be looking at hundreds of tasks that got created. They were completed by Marcy at 2:12 p.m. on last Tuesday. Not only that, you'll get an email digested every day of what tasks were completed. Obviously they bring up a lot of questions sometimes, so we're there to help answer them. Why was this done? It's a great place to be in a situation where you see things getting done, and now you're curious to why it's getting done, versus you don't know what's going on. So ask the question: what was done last week? What was done a month ago? What have you guys been doing over the past 2 months? Can you give me an idea about the strategy, the approach, have you been looking at ads and then making better decisions based on the ads that are doing well and the ads that are doing less well? Are you optimizing my campaign to that degree? What was done? Just tell me. I'll be surprised if you get an answer. So this part right here, why do I have a contract? Why is your provider talking about 12 to 24 month agreements, 60% buyouts? It's not a lot of confidence there. The problem with marketing services is that we're the first budget that gets cut. I mean, there's like the entertainment and meals budget. There's and we're not talking about general practices of entrepreneurship. I'm talking about real life. I'm talking about small businesses that have 7 to 10 people that gross anywhere from 500 to 1.2 million a year. When it goes down, they look at Lucas and go, "Hey, dude, I've got to disconnect this for a little bit because I just got burned on this project. I'm in court for 3 months." It doesn't really matter what the story is. We understand. If you're in a contract, there's no understanding in contracts. We're confident enough to know that you're going to want to continue working with us even after your bad spout, the small business issues that are unavoidable. Most people would say, "Lucas, well, you're not supposed to stop doing marketing. Marketing and sales is what gets you through the rough spots." It's okay. You tell 9 out of 10 of my small businesses that when they're in a rut or when the IRS is calling them. Tell you what, they stop doing everything. They don't go on vacation. They don't do that. They squeeze all their money back into the business. And honestly, at some point, to me, it's a smart thing to do as well. And that's why we haven't built a system that basically hamstrings small businesses and really just ticks off the market. My expectation is that after the past couple of years of all these contracts being built into these small businesses, there's a real big distaste in the mouth for what we do. And here I am trying to repitch and reappropriate what we do as a logical and sound decision for your business. Yeah, it's tough. So the last question, and maybe the first question you should ever ask anybody that's in this business, that's pitching you services, whether they're Google advertisements or search engine optimization or web design or whatever it is, what happens when I leave? Because you're going to leave. At some point, the project's over. So, at some time, if you look at search engine optimization at its heightened sense, it is an optimization service. And optimization services in their full glory are all about working yourself out of the job. There's some points where we look at 12 months being the longest that we can work on a site if it's a small website. One of the reasons is because of the way we focus on our site health and keyword research and competitive analysis. And eventually you're number one. And as long as no new competitors come in and you don't want to grow any new products and services, there's not a whole lot we can do. Your site's going to continue to be number one until Google changes or until the market shifts. So the greatest part about this question, what happens if I leave, is that some people don't know that inside their 12-month contract with their digital provider, that they don't have access to that Google Ads account. This is just one example, or any other account. And when you're ready to leave and digital provider says, "Okay, thanks, goodbye," you're like, "Hey, can I get my work? Can I get where's my Google Ads account?" And they go, "Oh, no, you don't get your Google Ads account." You're like, "Wait a minute, I just invested $12,000 over 12 months into this thing, and you're telling me I don't get to keep it?" Well, this is a great problem right now in the market where we've had to shift our model, and it's become highly successful for us to abandon that cloak and dagger, the pull back the curtain, whatever you want to call it, to really start to add accountability into the transparency model that everybody says they're a part of. So in the back end, when you're ready to leave, you get to keep your account. You get to move on with your account. And the greatest thing that's happened, the greatest outcome of what's actually happened is that our clients who do leave, which has been very few over the past couple of years, have taken their accounts with them and taken them to another digital provider. And the digital provider is saying, "No, we can't use your account because we're going to create you an account that you can't ever have or take with you," which is totally insane. Matter of fact, it's something that really bothers me about, and it's really kind of the catalyst of why I've created these series to help re-educate and provide small businesses an opportunity to be smart about choices and know what the difference between an agency and a provider is. So, are you working with a provider? If you get a phone call or unfortunately finding yourself on a digital provider call list, you'll find those questions will make them squirm a bit. They preach transparency. They keep you out of the loop on creative work and strategy decisions and try to ease you over with click summaries. If that sounds familiar, then yes, please call us. One of the things that we hear is that, when you have a digital provider, one of the biggest muscles in that group is not the creative, it's not the strategy, it's the sales. And if you look at some of the feedback from people who have exited companies that have come to us, sort of trying to find the greener pastures of sorts, they're telling us stuff like they've had to make 40 calls a day. I don't even want 40 customers. I get it's a numbers game, and if you're into generating leads, and which is not what we're into at the core, we're not making calls on your behalf for clients. We're not doing those things. We're growing businesses organically. If you look at having to call 40 people a day as your strategy of growing your business, that's a tough one. I would hate that I would have anybody on my team that would be forced to make 40 calls a day, log those calls so that they were verified, and then sit in a cube with a headset all day. Yeah, not good. All right, so our checklist, just to kind of put you into the mood of cashing out on this webinar with us, begin to understand the differences here. So here's a checklist. Your report needs more. It needs a tail. You see the front, it's shiny, it looks good, but you don't have any meat, any bones. Your report needs more. Clicks are not a strategy. It's an easy statement. Hey, we're going to get you 128 clicks this month. What? Why? What are they doing? Who are these people? Why are they important to me? Remember that spend rates are variable. So if anybody tries to lock you into a static spend, which means the same spend every month, don't do it. And hire an agency. And I think that's something that I've hopefully been able to declare with Stand and Stretch, is that we are an agency. I got my little thing on the side over there. It says ask questions, click reports fail, because they, it's good. And then accountability and transparency, for most providers aren't checked. So hire an agency and figure out, what the best approach for your business model is. It's not just a 12-month contract for $1,000 a month. So just to kind of spread the word, I want you to know that a digital provider is basically someone who provides digital products or services. Puh, that sounds gross and annoying. A digital agency like Stand and Stretch is a business or organization established to provide digital services by organizing transactions between clients and their customers based on ongoing optimizable process. At the end of the day, our job at Stand and Stretch is to continually look for improvement in what we do, optimization, efficiencies, process. We have the best process. We have an accountability model that would surprise you. Every month or every quarter, we show up with a time log, normally a 30 to 50 page, nicely formatted, spiral bound at the print shop report, where you can see every person who ever did anything on your account and why they did it and what they did and what kind of task or task list or project it was attached to. Those are the things that really make a difference. When you have a digital provider providing you just a click report but doesn't have much else to say about who did what, or where, if I can keep my account if I decide to leave, those are things that we've solved. And we believe in all of our heart and all of our creative work that Stand and Stretch is a digitally native agency. So I want to thank you guys for showing up today. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. You can check us out at www.standandstretch.com. You can also see us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. with the term stand and stretch. All right. Thank you, guys. Be looking forward the next couple of weeks for the second episode of this. It will be including more of an educational approach, but it'll also be sort of ripping into the digital providers a little bit more. And at that point, we'll have some things to wrap up in our third, which will be more about us and some details that I think you guys will love and appreciate. So again, I appreciate your time. Y'all have a great day and see you next time.